Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We open the floor to questions. Yes, I think ASEC can reply to the definition of due cause. How
Yes, it will contain there has to be a reasonable basis for doing so. That is the generic understanding of due cause as applied to Section 12. But it's very, very clear it will be in the IRR.
Who will determine the due cause? Will it be the DOJ or
There's
any
an initial
law enforcement
determination.
agent?
We have not. That's why we're going to consult it first, considering the immediacy requirement and given the contours of cybercrime. But the initial determination will have to come from the executive, which is either a DOJ composite team or an operations center or a composite team including the NBI, PNP, but with oversight from civil society. That is the direction.
Okay. My last question would be: we all know that service providers, like Globe, PLDT, Smart, and Sun, provide the transport, or the highway for a lot of the data and communication to take place. And we are also aware that similar to US and European counterparts of the cybercrime and other related laws, there are certain qualified immunity provisions given to service providers. And we're just wondering if the IRR would also give such qualified immunity provisions to service providers, given that the premise is that service providers really provide the transport for all of this data and communication to take place.
Very good. You don't need to wonder. There will be very clear safe harbor provision for telcos and ISPs acting in good faith.
Thank you.
Next question. Undersecretary Casambre. I left. Okay. Yes, while aside from the safe harbor provision, probably one question is who will actually be implementing this, no? In the United States, for example, if the FBI has an order to monitor or block, it's an FBI agent that actually does it. Will this be the case here in the Philippines? An NBI agent will have to actually walk into a telco or ISP? Or will this be simply an email or an order from the DOJ to the ISP or telco?
Sorry, see Yusek Casambre, can we just give him a round of applause for the great work? He has to leave for an urgent pressing requirement, but he assures you that he's with us online. So they just removed the chair, so thank you. Should I be responding to that? Somebody wants to, I want to share the mic, please. Joey, can you?
As I see it, sir, it would be best if an NBI agent will be assigned dun sa mga telco natin to monitor.
Okay. Further questions? Yes? Okay. Oh, hello.
Hi, my name is Chad Garcia Ramilo. I work for the Association for Progressive Communications. One of the things that you said earlier, your example around adultery and how that can be done through the computer. But in fact, the definition that you have around that the law has, not that the law has in the Cybercrime Prevention Act exactly says that. The definition says, and I'll read it to you. Cybersex, the willful engagement, maintenance, control, or operation, directly or indirectly, of any lascivious exhibition of sexual organs or sexual activity with the aid of a computer system for favor of or consideration. One of the problems of the Act is that it defines it quite vaguely. So under this definition, what is the limitation of cybersex? So in fact, I think that is exactly the question you were asking. So I'm not sure how then do you look at this, how do you make this definition clearer when you're talking about implementing rules and regulation. One of the things we discussed in a forum last Friday is exactly why the cyber sex as one of the offenses should be struck out of the act itself.
Okay, so the question is making the cyber sex provision less vague.
Cyber sex ako sasagot.
Oh yes.
Actually, Senator Quingona has a problem with that particular section. In fact, his attack is on the meaning of the word, I think, lascivious, because he says that there's no stable definition for what is meant by lascivious, meaning it's, I guess it's a question of taste, and therefore renders that particular provision vague. The limitations, if any, would be in the phrase for favor or consideration. Consideration means money changes hands in exchange for the exhibition of the lascivious content using ICT. The question in my mind is what is meant by favor, because you could argue all sex is for favor. But so, in other words, it's all. So if it's covered, so that's the problem. I mean, favor means there's no consideration. So how do you prove it? It's in exchange for something else. So it's difficult to prove. And I think the other problem is that there's the word indirectly. So you can commit it directly, it's clear. If you're the one doing the exhibition, then you're the one violating the law. Meaning the person paying isn't penalized because he's not the one actually doing the exhibition. But if it includes indirect violation, does that mean that he is also included? I think the indirect was included in order to penalize those persons who engage this as a business. In other words, they recruit women and engage this in a business. But to me, it seems a little vague to use the word indirect in order to cover that. I think the Congress could have been more specific that one who engages in this as a business, recruiting others to engage in this type of activity should be separately penalized.
Yeah, I too have a problem with that definition of cyber sex. In fact, one of the constitutional issues against the cybercrime law is about the fact that hindi naman natin nila lahat, some of the serious provisions of the law are overly or vaguely stated. Now, if a punitive law is overly and vaguely stated, that law or that provision of law can be stricken out as void for vagueness. It is void for vagueness, and therefore it is unconstitutional, because when a law is void or is vague, you are not according the party who may later on be charged of a crime with due process. Due process presupposes that a party knows the law, and knowing the law means that the party clearly understands the law because the law is clear. Now, there are a lot of provisions in the cybercrime law where even the definitions are vague, they are overly broad. And on the cyber sex definition, the word precisely fair for favor or consideration. It would have been much better if Congress said for commerce, because the word favor or consideration may have its good side, it may have its bad side. Iyon nga natin sa deed of sale natin, you can sell your property by saying, for in consideration of my love to my daughter and the additional amount of 100,000 pesos, I am selling my lot to her. There is nothing illegal in effect as far as favor is concerned. But in this case, we are using favor or consideration in a criminal sense when that word or phrase can be interpreted in a lot of ways. So therefore, because the law is vague, overly broad, it in fact exercises a prior mental restraint on the citizen, because he is at a loss as to whether his act or conduct is criminal or otherwise. Unlike